You've probably had moments where you sat across from someone, maybe a coworker, a friend, or even someone you just met, and thought to yourself, the truth is, all of us want to be understood. We might hide parts of ourselves, but deep down, there's a craving to be seen, to be known beyond small talk or surface-level conversation. And here's the surprising part. Truly understanding another person isn't some kind of magic. It's not a gift you're born with or a trick reserved for psychologists. It's a skill, a learnable skill. And the difference between casual chit-chat and genuine connection comes down to one simple thing. Think about how most conversations start. We ask things like, "What do you do for work?" Or, they rarely tell us who a person really is. They keep the conversation at the surface, where it's easy but not meaningful. But when you ask the right kind of question, everything changes. It's like opening a door that most people keep locked. The walls come down. You stop talking to someone's mask, and you start seeing the real person behind it. And that's exactly what this video is about. Today, we're diving into 7 powerful questions that can help you understand anyone on a deeper level. These aren't manipulative tricks or ways to invade someone's privacy. These are tools for connection questions that can transform an ordinary conversation into something unforgettable. Philosopher Socrates once said, "Know thyself is the beginning of all wisdom." But I believe there's another side to that truth. Knowing others is an equally powerful form of wisdom. When you can step into someone else's inner world, you gain the ability to build trust, inspire loyalty, and create genuine relationships that actually matter. Now, let me be clear. These questions aren't just for psychologists or interviewers. They're for anyone who wants to connect more deeply. Maybe you're trying to understand your spouse or your partner on a deeper level. Maybe you want to get past the formal walls at work and really know your team. Or maybe you just want to build stronger friendships that feel authentic instead of shallow. Imagine being able to walk away from a conversation and not just know someone's job title or hobbies, but to truly feel who they are at their core. Imagine hearing their answers and realizing, that one sentence told me more about this person than an entire hour of small talk ever could. That's the power of the 7 questions I'm about to share with you. Each one is simple. They don't sound intimidating, but they cut through the surface like a laser and get to the truth of what makes a person who they are. By the time we reach the last question, you'll understand not only how to see into someone else's world, but also how to create the kind of authentic connection most people are starving for today. And honestly, in a world full of noise, distractions, and fake social media smiles, that kind of connection isn't just nice, it's rare, it's powerful, and it can change your relationships forever. So, if you've ever wanted to truly read someone's soul, not by guessing, not by analyzing complicated body language, but by simply asking the right questions, stay with me. Because these 7 questions might just transform the way you connect with everyone around you. Let's get started. Let's begin with the first question. What's been the highlight of your week so far? Now, at first, this might sound like just another casual question, something you could toss into small talk at a coffee shop. But don't underestimate it. This question is powerful because it doesn't just ask about how someone's week went. It asks them to choose, to reflect, to identify the one thing that brought them energy, joy, or meaning. Most people, when asked, "How's your week going?" will shrug and say, "Busy," or "Fine." Those words tell you nothing. But when you ask about the highlight, you're cutting straight through the noise. You're asking, what actually mattered to you? I'll never forget the first time I tried this. I was meeting a new colleague, and instead of diving into shop talk, I asked her, "So, what's been the highlight of your week?" She paused, then her face lit up. She told me she had spent her Saturday helping her elderly neighbor move furniture into a new apartment. No mention of career milestones, no bragging about personal achievements, just a story about service, compassion, and human connection. And in that one answer, I learned more about her than I ever could have through hours of polite small talk. I learned she valued people over prestige, service over success, relationships over recognition. Months later, when I needed someone dependable for a critical team project, she was the first person I thought of, and I wasn't wrong. She turned out to be one of the most selfless, reliable teammates I've ever worked with. That's the beauty of this question. It's like holding up a mirror to someone's values. Career-driven people will talk about promotions or breakthroughs. Family-centered people will share sweet moments with their kids. Adventure seekers will tell you about the new trail they hiked or the restaurant they discovered. And here's the key, it's not just about what they say, it's about how they say it. Watch their body language. Notice how their eyes light up, how their tone changes, how they lean forward in their seat. That shift in energy tells you exactly where their heart lives. You're not just hearing their words, you're witnessing their joy. Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once said, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This question reveals what that very little is for each person. For some, it's achievement. For others, it's service. For many, it's connection. And sometimes, it's as simple as a quiet moment of peace they carved out for themselves. I've asked this question in job interviews, first dates, networking events, even casual chats with strangers, and it always works. A business partner once told me his highlight was finally organizing his garage and seeing everything in its place. That simple answer showed me he valued order, structure, and completion. Later, when we worked together, those exact traits became the backbone of his success in managing complex projects. Another time, someone told me about stumbling across a hidden, hole-in-the-wall restaurant that nobody knew about. That single highlight revealed a curious, adventurous personality who treasures unique experiences and loves discovery. That gave me the perfect way to connect through shared recommendations and conversations about hidden gems. And here's something important. If someone struggles to answer or says, "I don't really have a highlight," that's just as revealing. It might mean they're going through a tough time or that they don't often stop to reflect on the good things. Sometimes that's your opportunity to bring encouragement, to help them see the light in their week. So, why does this question matter so much? Because when you understand what energizes someone, you begin to understand who they are at their core. You can predict how they'll react, what they'll prioritize, and even how to build a relationship that feels natural and meaningful to both of you. It's not about asking a clever question, it's about opening a window into someone's inner world. And once you've seen that, you can never go back to surface-level conversation again. That's the power of starting with, "What's been the highlight of your week so far?" The second question takes us even deeper. What's something you used to believe that you don't believe anymore? At first glance, this might seem like a simple question about opinions, but in reality, it's a question about growth. It's about humility. It's about how someone responds when life proves them wrong. And that's one of the strongest indicators of character you'll ever find. You see, the first question shows us what energizes a person right now. But this second one, it reveals how they evolve. It tells you whether they're rigid and stuck or open, flexible, and willing to learn. I once asked this question during a job interview. The candidate had an impressive resume, polished answers, everything you'd expect. But I wasn't interested in rehearsed perfection. I wanted to see how he handled being wrong. So I asked, "What's something you used to believe that you don't believe anymore?" He paused, thought for a moment, then said, "I used to believe working long hours automatically made me more productive. I thought leaving the office at 9 p.m. meant I was outperforming everyone else. But over time, I realized focused work in fewer hours delivers far better results, and those colleagues I judged as lazy were often getting more done than I was." That one answer told me everything I needed to know. It showed me he could admit mistakes, learn from experience, and adjust his behavior. It showed humility, awareness, and maturity. And guess what? I hired him. 3 years later, he became one of the most effective leaders I've ever worked with. Now, here's the key. Not everyone answers this question the same way. Some people light up, eager to share stories of how their beliefs have changed. Those are the people who see growth as natural. They're comfortable admitting they've evolved. Others hesitate or even say, "I can't think of anything." That answer is just as revealing. It often means they haven't reflected much, or worse, they're too proud to admit they've ever been wrong. Think about it. Would you want to work with someone who believes they've always been right, or someone who can say, "I used to think this, but life taught me better"? One of the most powerful answers I've heard came from a woman who said, "I used to believe asking for help was weakness, that if I needed others, it meant I wasn't capable. But now I see that asking for help is wisdom. It means I value results more than ego." That shift from isolation to interdependence showed she had grown into someone strong enough to put pride aside for progress. And that's why this question is so transformative. It reveals not only what someone believes, but how they got there. Did they learn from painful experiences, from study and research, from mentors or loved ones? Their answer shows you their learning style, their resilience, and their relationship with growth itself. Roman philosopher Seneca once said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." When people share what they no longer believe, they're showing you the old self they've outgrown and the new self they've stepped into. So the next time you really want to understand someone, don't just ask about their wins or highlights. Ask them about the beliefs they've left behind. Because in those stories, you'll discover their humility, their wisdom, and their capacity to grow. Now let's move to the third question. And I believe this is one of the most powerful ones of all. If you could change one thing about how people treat each other, what would it be? At first, it sounds like a harmless, even casual, hypothetical. You're not asking someone to confess their deepest wounds directly. You're not digging into their personal life in a way that feels invasive. Instead, you're inviting them to talk about humanity in general. And because the question feels safe, people often reveal their deepest truths without even realizing it. Here's why this question works so well. It's not really about people in general. It's about them. Their answer is shaped by their experiences, by the times they've been hurt, by the values they hold closest, and by the ideals they wish the world lived up to. I remember asking this to a potential business partner years ago. We'd been talking numbers, logistics, strategy, everything looked good on paper. But I still didn't know if our values aligned. So over dinner, I asked, "If you could change one thing about how people treat each other, what would it be?" He thought for a moment and said, "I wish people would stop making promises they don't intend to keep." That one sentence told me everything. It showed me he valued reliability, integrity, and trust. It also told me he had probably been hurt by broken promises before. And I was right. 2 years later, when we were working side by side, he turned out to be the most dependable partner I ever had. He was the guy who called if he was going to be 5 minutes late, the guy who always delivered what he said he would. That one answer revealed the blueprint of his character. And that's the beauty of this question. Different people reveal different core concerns. Some will say, "I wish people would be kinder." That usually means they've felt the sting of harshness or cruelty. Others might say, "I wish people would be honest." That's often born from experiences of betrayal, lies, or manipulation. Still others will say, "I wish people would actually listen instead of just waiting for their turn to talk." That tells you they've felt invisible or dismissed in their own relationships. Behind every answer is a story, a wound, a lesson. I once asked this to a colleague who immediately said, "I wish people would stop judging others for things they can't control." That answer showed me she valued fairness and acceptance, and it also hinted she had probably experienced unfair judgment herself. Later, I watched her become the peacemaker in difficult team situations, creating inclusive spaces where everyone felt heard. Her answer had already revealed who she truly was. Another person told me, "I wish people would follow through on their commitments to themselves, not just to others. That's not only about discipline, it's about integrity at the deepest level. It revealed someone who values self-respect and has probably struggled to deal with people who make excuses or give up too easily. Philosopher Epictetus once said, "Know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly." When people answer this question, they're telling you exactly who they are, what they value, what they've endured, and what kind of relationships they will and won't accept. So the next time you want to move past surface-level talk, ask this question. Then listen carefully, not just to the words, but to the emotions underneath. Do they answer with frustration, with hope? Because in that single answer, you'll see their relationship philosophy laid bare. You'll know what builds trust with them and what destroys it. And that's insight you can't get from a resume, a first impression, or 1,000 small-talk conversations. The fourth question takes the conversation in an unexpected direction. What's a decision you made that surprised even yourself? This question is fascinating because it uncovers something most people never talk about: their capacity for growth and self-surprise. It's not about their routine choices, the things they do every day. It's about the moments when they stepped outside their comfort zone, broke their own patterns, or discovered a part of themselves they didn't know existed. I'll give you an example. I once asked this during a team meeting, and one of my colleagues, Sarah, who was always quiet, cautious, and by the book, gave an answer that stunned everyone. She said, "I quit my corporate job to start a food truck." Nobody saw that coming. She had never even cooked professionally, but she said something inside her needed to create with her own hands, to step away from the spreadsheets and the endless emails, and to build something tangible. That one answer revealed so much more about Sarah than years of working alongside her ever had. It showed hidden courage, creativity, and a willingness to take risks when something truly mattered to her. And later, when we needed someone to lead a bold new project, I thought of her first. Why? Because her story had shown me she wasn't afraid to bet on herself. That's what makes this question powerful. It separates the people who live unconsciously, sticking to the same script day after day, from the ones who are willing to evolve. The ones who take risks, surprise themselves, and discover hidden strengths. Now, pay attention to how people answer. Some will say proudly, "I never thought I could stand up to my boss, but I did, and it changed everything." That tells you they've found hidden courage. Others might say, "I volunteered to give a presentation, even though I hate public speaking, and I actually enjoyed it." That reveals adaptability, resilience, and a willingness to grow. On the other hand, some people might struggle. I once asked someone, and he said, "I'm pretty consistent." And while consistency can be a good trait, in that moment what it really showed was a lack of flexibility, a resistance to change. Someone who rarely, if ever, pushes beyond their established boundaries. And here's what's interesting. The tone of their answer matters as much as the content. Do they talk about their decision with pride? That usually signals a healthy growth mindset. Do they talk with regret? That might reveal struggles with risk-taking. Do they share it with curiosity, like they're still amazed at themselves? That shows openness and a willingness to keep evolving. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Adapt yourself to the life you've been given, and truly love the people with whom you share it." This question reveals how someone adapts, whether they fight change, resist it, or embrace it with courage. And here's another layer. Notice whether their surprising decision was triggered by external pressure or an inner calling, or because something deep inside told them they had to. External surprises show how they handle circumstances. Internal surprises reveal their ability to reinvent themselves from within. The truth is, we all have moments that define us. Moments where we look back and say, "I never thought I'd do that, but I did." Those moments are often where our real growth happens. By asking this question, you give someone permission to share that story. And in doing so, you get to see not just who they've been, but who they're becoming. So don't underestimate this one. What's a decision you made that surprised even yourself? It's not just a question. It's a mirror that reflects courage, adaptability, and hidden potential, and it can completely transform how you see the person in front of you. The fifth question takes everything to the deepest level. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? This is one of those classic questions that seems simple, but it cuts right through fear, doubt, and excuses. It bypasses the rational mind that says, that's not practical, or I might mess up, and it reveals someone's truest, rawest desires. When you ask this, you're not asking what's safe, you're asking what their soul really wants. I remember having a conversation with a close friend who had been stuck in her career for months. She was frustrated, unfulfilled, always venting about her job, but never sure what she actually wanted. So I asked her this exact question. If you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? Her entire demeanor shifted. She didn't hesitate. She said, I'd open a counseling practice just for teenagers. I'd create a space where they could talk about depression, family struggles, identity issues without judgment. I'd make mental health support something every kid could access without shame. Her voice came alive in a way I'd never heard before. That answer wasn't just an idea, it was a calling. 6 months later, she enrolled in a counseling program. And that one question was the turning point that gave her permission to chase what she really wanted. That's the magic here. When someone answers this question, you see who they really are. Career-driven people might say they'd build an empire, start a company, or revolutionize an industry. Creative souls will talk about writing novels, making films, or creating art that moves people. Service-oriented individuals imagine starting charities, solving social problems, or dedicating themselves to causes that matter. And it's not just about what they say, it's about how they say it. Watch closely. Do they answer quickly, with energy and passion? That usually means the dream has been inside them for a long time, just waiting to be spoken aloud. Do they hesitate, struggle, or even go blank? That might mean they've buried their desires so deep under real life that they've forgotten how to dream. I once asked this to a colleague in a very traditional corporate role. Without missing a beat, he said, I'd travel the world and document disappearing cultures through photography and storytelling. You would never have guessed that from the way he carried himself at work. But later, when we worked on international projects, his passion for culture and human stories became his greatest strength. Another person told me, I'd start a foundation to provide free education to kids in underserved communities. That answer revealed her deepest values: equality, justice, and hope for the next generation. And suddenly, every decision she made at work made sense. She was always fighting for fairness and opportunity. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." This question reveals exactly what someone craves, not in terms of money or status, but in terms of meaning. Do they crave impact, adventure, creativity, connection? And here's the kicker. Their answer often shows you the gap between the life they're living and the life they really want. Someone might say they dream of helping animals, but they've never set foot in a shelter. Or they dream of creating art, but they've buried that part of themselves under practical choices. That gap is telling, and sometimes asking this question is the spark they need to bridge it. So, when you ask, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? You're not just asking about dreams. You're asking about identity. You're asking about their deepest motivation, the thing that would bring them ultimate fulfillment. And when you know someone's deepest desire, you don't just know what they want, you know who they are. Now we arrive at the sixth question, and this one uncovers something deeply human. When you face a major challenge, what do you rely on to get through it? Every single one of us will face storms in life. Loss, setbacks, failure, unexpected hardship. It's a window into their resilience, their support systems, and the beliefs that hold them together when everything else feels like it's falling apart. Some people will immediately point to relationships. They'll say, I lean on my spouse, or I call my best friend, or even, I turn to my parents. That shows you they find strength and connection in the safety net of people who love them. For others, it's about faith or philosophy. They'll talk about prayer, meditation, or Stoic principles that remind them to focus on what they can control. And then there are those who rely on strategy and reason-making lists, breaking down problems, and attacking challenges step by step. Each answer paints a different picture of how they navigate life's chaos. I remember asking this to a candidate during an interview. He thought for a moment and said, "Honestly, I rely on my morning routine. No matter what's happening, I journal, I work out, I spend 10 minutes planning. That structure gives me stability when everything else feels uncertain." That answer told me he was disciplined, anchored, and someone who doesn't crumble under pressure because he knows how to ground himself. Another time, I asked a friend going through a tough divorce. She said, "I call my mom. She doesn't always give advice, but she listens. That's what I need to keep going." And in that moment, I realized that her greatest source of strength wasn't independence, it was connection. And that insight helped me understand how to show up for her better. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Some people live this truth by reframing challenges through their mindset. Others live it by leaning on community, or by finding discipline in routines, or by turning to their spiritual faith. What makes this question so revealing is that it doesn't just tell you how people survive hardship. It shows you how they grow from it. Do they come out bitter or stronger? Do they rely on destructive habits or on constructive anchors? And here's another key detail. Notice whether they talk about external supports or inner strength. Some will say, "I rely on my faith, my family, my mentors." Others will say, "I rely on myself, on journaling, on self-reflection." Neither is right or wrong, but it tells you a lot about their worldview and whether they lean more toward interdependence or independence when life gets hard. And sometimes, the most revealing answer is silence. If someone can't name what they rely on, it may show they haven't built the kind of anchors that sustain resilience. That doesn't mean they're weak, it might mean they're still searching. And that insight gives you a chance to support them in ways they've never experienced before. So ask this question, and then listen. You'll learn not just how someone handles stress, but where their soul runs when the storm comes. And once you know that, you'll know how to walk alongside them in a way that truly matters. Because in the end, life isn't about avoiding challenges. It's about discovering what holds you together when the challenges arrive. And this one simple question, when you face a major challenge, what do you rely on, opens a door straight to the answer. And now, we come to the final question, the one that brings everything full circle. How would you like to be remembered? This question goes beyond careers, beyond achievements, beyond the noise of everyday life. It invites someone to reflect on their legacy, the imprint they want to leave on the world and on the people around them. And the way they answer tells you their deepest values, their truest identity, and what they believe gives life meaning. I once asked this to a manager I deeply admired. Without hesitation, he said, "I want to be remembered as someone who helped others grow." He didn't mention profits, titles, or recognition. What mattered most to him was lifting people up, shaping lives, and leaving behind a ripple effect of growth. And that one answer explained everything about his leadership style, why he mentored so much, why he always took time for others. His legacy was never about himself. It was about the people he touched. Other people will give very different answers. Some will say, "I want to be remembered as a person of integrity, someone who always kept their word." That shows they value honesty and reliability above all else. Others might say, "I want people to remember me as someone who brought joy." That reveals a spirit of optimism, a desire to light up the room and make life lighter for those around them. And then there are people who say, "I want to be remembered as someone who never gave up." That tells you resilience is at the heart of who they are, that persistence, grit, and determination define their story. Here's what makes this question so powerful. It forces people to step out of the present moment and look at life from the perspective of the end. Suddenly, the little distractions, the deadlines, the emails, the arguments fade away. What's left is the essence of what they truly care about. And often, the gap between how they want to be remembered and how they're currently living is revealing. Someone might say, I want to be remembered as a loving parent, but they're constantly buried in work. Another might say, I want to be remembered as a creator, but they haven't picked up a paintbrush or written a single word in years. That gap isn't just interesting, it's an invitation. Sometimes asking this question is the mirror someone needs to realign their life with their values. Philosopher Seneca once wrote, life is long if you know how to use it. And this question shines a light on how people want to use their lives. Do they want to leave behind wealth or wisdom? Do they want to be remembered for what they built or for how they made people feel? I once heard someone answer, I want to be remembered as the person who never judged others. That revealed not only a core value of compassion, but also hinted at their own story. Maybe they had been judged unfairly in the past, and now they wanted to live differently. And here's the key. Whatever answer you get, you're not just hearing about their legacy. The thing that quietly guides their decisions, shapes their relationships, and defines their character. So, when you ask, how would you like to be remembered? You're not just asking about the end of their story, you're uncovering the narrative they want to live right now. Because legacy isn't built after we're gone, it's built moment by moment in the choices we make today. And if you truly want to know someone, not just who they are, but who they aspire to be, this is the question that will reveal it. We've now explored 7 powerful questions, each one a key that unlocks a hidden door inside the human heart. Think about what we've covered. The highlight of someone's week shows what lights them up. The beliefs they've let go reveal their humility and growth. The one change they'd make in human behavior exposes their deepest values. The decisions that surprised even themselves uncover their hidden courage. Their dream without the fear of failure reveals their truest desires. What they rely on in hard times shows their source of strength. And how they want to be remembered tells you the story they're trying to live. Together, these aren't just questions. They're a roadmap to human connection. In a world filled with noise, small talk, and shallow exchanges, most people are starving for conversations that matter. They don't want more weather updates, sports scores, or I'm so busy replies. They want to feel seen. They want to feel understood. And when you ask questions like these, you give them that gift. Now, let's be honest, it takes courage to ask. Because the moment you do, you're stepping out of autopilot conversation and into real connection. And real connection comes with risk. People might open up. People might be vulnerable. And yes, you might need to listen with your whole heart. But that's exactly what makes it so rare and so powerful. I can tell you from experience, the people who've made the biggest impact on my life weren't the ones who had all the right answers. They were the ones who asked the right questions. They were the ones who cared enough to dig deeper, to go past the surface, to sit with me in truth instead of skating on top of it. And here's the thing, when you practice asking these questions, you're not just learning about others, you're also learning about yourself. Because every time you ask, you'll find yourself reflecting too. What's been the highlight of my week? What belief have I outgrown? What would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? These questions don't just create connection outward, they create clarity inward. The Stoics understood this. They taught that wisdom comes from self-examination. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. They all believed that the way we live in relation to others defines the quality of our lives. To know yourself is the beginning of wisdom. To know others is the beginning of compassion. So here's my challenge to you. Don't let this just be another video you watch and forget. Pick one of these 7 questions, just one, and ask it this week. Ask it to your partner at dinner. Ask it to a coworker when you're on a break. Watch what happens. Watch how the energy in the room changes. Watch how their eyes light up, how the conversation deepens, how the connection shifts. Because when you ask better questions, you don't just get better answers, you get better relationships. And better relationships, they're the foundation of a meaningful life. So, let's end with this. Reading someone's thoughts isn't about control. It's not about manipulation. It's about connection. It's about choosing to see the human being in front of you, not as a role, not as a resume, not as a mask, but as a soul. And when you do that, you don't just change your conversations, you change your life. If this video gave you new insight, do me a favor. Hit the like button so others can find it, subscribe to the channel so we can keep growing together, and leave a comment below. Which of these 7 questions will you try first? I can't wait to hear your answers, and more importantly, I can't wait to see the connections you create. I'll see you in the next video.